Hello everyone and welcome back to Poorly Abides. I've got an interesting topic for you to think about tonight, which is on the subject of music production. Have you ever got yourself into a predicament where you've made a little loop and you just can't progress past that loop, and you really want to make a whole track, but you're just kind of stuck in this kind of jam process where you're putting things down, but you get stuck and you just can't progress, and you've just got a loop going and nothing else. Well, I have many times, and one of the ways I managed to get past that was, one, starting to think about the track as a whole, but also I started to use something called Agile and Kanban, which is a project management technique. But I think it's really interesting and can be quite useful for any kind of project management or music production, particularly, especially if you're trying to make what can be quite a complicated track or an EP or an album where there's lots of things to think about. It's really useful to get all of those ideas and things down first onto a piece of paper, so you've actually got it all in a list, like a shopping list, and then go through each bit and just tick it off as you make it. So, I mean, for example, if you get stuck making a kick drum and you can't quite get it right, you don't just want to rage quit the entire track and do something else. Actually, you can start to work on the other things that you put down on your list. So you may have heard of Kanban, you might not have. It's the kind of central element to the Agile project management process. But the history of Kanban actually came from the Toyota vehicle production system back in the 1940s in Japan. And what they used to do was have little cards stuck to the things that they were working on along the production line, and if there was an issue with it, they would just tick, blocked. This thing needs to be fixed before it can be progressed. And they used to use Kanban boards, which is what's depicted here on the right. And you might not be able to see that, but essentially what you do is you have a backlog of all of the things that you want to achieve. You've got your in progress items or in development, and then you've got your completed column at the end. And this is something that's used in software development significantly right now. Most software development organizations will be using Agile at their heart, and having daily stand-ups and operating what they called sprints, which is where they have phases of the project whereby things must be completed within that initial phase before going into the next phase, or the next sprint as they call it. But this can be used in a much more simple or simplified way with music production, and it's something that you may not have considered before. So let me show you how I'm using it. And tonight what we'll do is we'll build 3 tracks theoretically, just on paper, with words that will then become actual pieces of music later. So yeah, if I bring up my notepad, what I've got here, let me just get rid of that. We've got a simple Kanban board, and I've got 4 tasks on it. Yeah, let me just isolate that on the screen. So here is a simple Kanban board. We've got the backlog, which is the sort of shopping list of tracks, or tasks rather, that I want to complete. These are all the things that I want to complete in this project. I've got an in progress column, I've got a blocked column, and then a complete column. So if I start the project and start task 1, I'll move that to in progress. Then as I advance that task and it's successful, I'll move it into complete. But I don't necessarily have to do that in a kind of waterfall manner. I can do many tasks concurrently. So I could do tasks 2 and 3 at the same time. Now if, for example, I get stuck on task 2, that could be making hi-hats sound good. Like if I get frustrated making those hi-hats, I don't want to just quit the project. I could say, right, I was halfway through making the bass line, let's carry on making that bass line. Or I could say, right, we need to fine-tune the drum breaks, so let's start editing drum breaks, for example. So we're doing the bass line and the drums at the same time, and we'll come back to the kick drum at a later time, or whatever it was that we were stuck on. So we're doing many things at the same time, or concurrently, as it were. But what I'm able to do is actually observe where I'm blocked on something. So if I have a problem making a piece of music, and I can actually say, okay, that's where I failed. How can I resolve that issue? And I can actually either put all of my energy onto fixing that problem, or I can perhaps put in a rubbish kick drum for now and say, well, that's complete, and then finish the other stuff. And then, you know, by the time all the things are complete, I might get to the end of the track and say, hey, you know, that kick drum wasn't so bad after all. Maybe I'll keep it in. Or maybe now the whole track is complete, I've actually got a bit more of a better perspective over how I would like that kick drum to actually sound. So I'm going to replace it with something else. And this could be anything. You could build anything in this way. But what you have to do this is a listing of all of the things that you want in your track. Okay. And to do that means you have to have the vision of the track beforehand. You have to have visualized how you want it to be. You know, what BPM it should be, you know, how it should fit into a DJ set, you know, what kind of amount of bass you might want, what kind of cultural or musical references you want to have acknowledged within that track. Maybe you want to have a particular sample that you've always wanted to use, so you could get that on your list as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I work and make music. Now I need to write 3 tracks pretty quickly in the next few days, maybe even over the next 3 days. So I need to make track briefs. I need to make a short description of each of the 3 tracks. Now BPM is going to be significant, probably the most significant element of that, because the BPM kind of dictates almost to a certain extent what genre your track is in. You know, if you do a track at 174 BPM, you know, it could be you know, a Irish folk track that's super high speed, but it would fit very nicely in with a drum and bass set as well. And if you're doing something at 160, you know, it would fit very nicely with footwork. So you can almost say that your BPM is dictating what genre your music is. 130 is a BPM that I like a lot, because there's a lot of different moving parts within that area of music, and there's a lot of different influences that can be piled into that kind of space. So it's wide open for experimentation. I tend to do a lot of electro in that area. So I'm very fond of 130. Now, what I'd like to do is a down-tempo track, first of all. And I'm going to pick the BPMs. I'm just going to shout them out straight away. So I'm going to choose, I think I'm going to step up from 130. I'm going to go for 135. Okay. So it could be closer to garage almost if I put a bit of swing on that. Track 2, I'm going to go with probably 160 and have it quite kind of footwork Duke influenced. And for the final track, I'm going to have 174, and it is, I've been planning this for some time. It's going to be a straight up hard as nails tech step drum and bass track, and this area is definitely something I'm focusing on more recently, and the other two are things that I would just like to have done. Okay, but the BPM is not enough. I need to have the backlog, the list of things that I want to have in each of those tracks, so I can build the Kanban board for each of these 3 projects. Okay, so what I need to have now is a kind of rough overview of what each of these tracks should be. So, like I was just waxing lyrical on, the first one I think is going to be kind of electro influenced, heavy 808 kick, 808 snare, clap, and hats. I'm going to say for the bass line, bass line, the kick almost is the bass line, but it has its own bass as well. And what I mean by that is I take the transient from an 808 kick and mix it with a serum bass tone. So I'm going to kind of pinch an 808, the starting bit of the 808, and kind of mix it with a proper bass line, so I can have the best of both worlds. Some people use just the 808 kick for the bass line itself, but I'm not going to do that. What else? I don't use a 303 enough, so I'm going to put in some 303 acid sounds, but I don't have a 303, but I do have the SH101, so I'm going to use the SH101 acid sounds, and it's a bit quiet, so I'm going to ramp up the volume of that. Now it's going to need a decent sample as well. I definitely think I'm going to use some really interesting samples and little incidentals, things that happen just once in the track. And what I've been collecting for some time is vinyl, and I've got some quite nice breaks to show you in a bit, but what I also have is some what are essentially scratch records that have come out the kind of hip-hop scene. Things like this, which is Tools of War by the Citizens, and this has got some incredible samples on it, just all basically for scratching with. Also this Mad Scientist breaks, produced by DJ Scientist, full of samples, really excellent stuff. And this one as well, Blood Clot Breaks, by DJ Slice. And what these records represent really is the mixing of style and technical skill. I mean, look at that graffiti, that artwork is fabulous. And that's what this is all about. This is what music is about for me, is really a demonstration of technical skill but mixed with style. So if I can do that with these tracks, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So yeah, so samples from the Scratch records. Okay, so it's 135 BPM, electro influenced with a heavy 808 kick, 808 snare, clap and hats. For the bass line, the kick almost is the bass line, but it's got its own bass as well. Take the transient from the 808 kick and mix it with a serum bass tone. Put in some 303 acid sounds from the SH101, but ramp up the volume of it. Samples from the Scratch records, and that should be enough of a brief, I think, to get going and to build the backlog. So track 2 then, I think this is again going to be, I think I'm going to be quite 808 heavy on this as well. I've actually got a Roland MC303 groove box just down here in the corner. I don't really have a camera on that at the minute, but I'll show you that tomorrow. It's not much of a 303, but it is a very good 808 machine. So I'm going to say build a Duke track around an 808 kit. Again, find some decent samples. I might try and dig into some jazz for this. I've got some. Yeah, I've got quite a lot of other jazz stuff knocking around. What have we got? A lot of Scratch records. Yeah, so this one here, this is where are we? Dusty Fingers. This has got all sorts on it. So this has got more than just breaks. This will have jazz stuff on it as well. So I think we'll go with use the Dusty Fingers 12-inch for samples. It's gonna have to have a repetitive vocal, I think. I think that's needed. In terms of bass, Duke isn't necessarily one for big growling basses, but you know, maybe we can have a wobble in there. Let's get a serum wobble. That's always good fun. And then on to track 3. So this really does have to be a kind of breakbeat oriented monster. So let's type that. So breakbeat oriented monster. So what have we got for breaks then? So let's get these out the way. So the breaks I'm going to use for this, we have got Lynn Collins and Think. If you know your drum and bass and jungle, you'll know the Think break. Incredible bongo bands. Apache. I'll never find the original of this, but we've got here the Winstons. And you know what I'm going to say. Can I get that in focus? Come on. It's Amen, brother. And then this one is another compilation. But if you like Ed Rush and Optical, you might know this break. It's The Worm, Jimmy McGriff, absolute classic. So let's get all them down then. So what I want to do is have several breaks. We're going to have The Worm, Apache, the Amen, and Think. Yeah, let's just check that one more time. So we've got, yeah, The Worm, Amen Brother, Apache, and Think. Okay, I actually had something else I was thinking about as well. Don't know if it's here, but I'll never find it now. But yeah, the TR Amen break that was made, I think, by Trace and Dom and Roland. It was, what were the breaks in that? Let's search for that. TR Amen break. Anyway, yeah, let's get back to the notepad. So yeah, so several, yeah, this is going to be a breakbeat oriented monster, 174 BPM, several breaks which I've listed out there. So these are going to be all cut up, sequenced, and then arranged into various patterns where they overlap and interact with each other. There's different states that I want them to be in, so kind of distorted, high passed, reverbed, and reversed. For the bass end of this stuff, I'm going to have sine wave, obviously, a pitched sine wave down, meaning it goes kind of starting high and then dropping down. I'm going to add distorted harmonics, of course, to everything. And I think I'm going to need a hook for this one as well. I'm not very good at hooks or coming up with any kind of main riff, but I think I'm going to need a kind of lead sound, a synth. So I'm going to have to try and think about that. So it's going to be a kind of classic 90s drum and bass thing. And this is the one I'm most excited about. The other two are kind of similar, but I need to have 3 tracks soon for something. Okay, so yeah, so let's have a recap then. So, simple Kanban board. When I start to make these 3 tracks, I'm going to start to list out what will be the backlog for each of them based on what we've just described. I'll have an item for each breakbeat, the bass elements I want to have, the samples I want to capture, a section for the arrangement, a section for the intro, the drop, the breakout, the second drop, the outro, and then as I build each of these tracks, I'll kind of go through these boards and show you how it's done. Yeah, okay. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully that was interesting. I'm gonna have some music up and running soon, and yeah, if you like the video, click like and subscribe. Cheers.